All right, West Virginia fans, going to change up the video topic tonight. I usually do football, basketball, and really stick to on the field and on the court. But today, I wanted to talk about the current environment of West Virginia athletics as far as money goes. I feel like right now it's a very stressful time to be following the team. So I wanted to put my 2 cents out there as far as my thoughts on the current climate that is surrounding West Virginia athletics. And I want to engage with you guys. Give me your comments on how you personally feel, because I think it's a very important topic that has been discussed in the media recently. And I wanted to put my opinion out there on this topic. Before we do that, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to Jersey Eer. If you are watching this right now, you're a diehard Mountaineer fan. We would love to have you on board. With that being said, let's talk about the current state of the athletic department at West Virginia financially. So, it's a new world and money runs college sports. You guys know that, right? If unless you've been living under a rock or you're just totally naive to the situation, we all see the writing on the wall with college athletics. NIL and collectives are the new recruiting tools. Yes, you have to have good player relationships. Yes, you need to have your ducks in order, everything set. But it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about money. And we're going to talk about that tonight is kids are going to make their financial decisions based on money. Think about this, right? If you were at a company doing a job and someone offered you double the money to do the same job, would you take it? Chances are most people here would say yes. Yes, you're loyal to your company and things like that, but money talks. And if you get paid much more rewardably at a different job doing the same work, you're probably going to take that. And I think that's the uphill battle that West Virginia is facing right now in this new landscape. And if you don't fund it, you don't compete. So if we as fans don't do our part, we are never going to compete and get to where we need to be as a program. So this has turned something really stressful, right? This is a very stressful thing that's around the program. And I think our fan base is starting to feel that stress. And again, the best players and coaches are going to follow the compensation, right? Look what's going to happen with this coaching carousel. The best coaches are going to get crazy salaries, and they're going to go where they're compensated. Same thing with players, right? Let's talk about Chris Henry Jr. It's almost like West Virginia had no shot at getting him because we probably couldn't afford a player like that, right? He's a 5-star talent. And even though he's a legacy guy, we kind of know we don't roll with Ohio State's money. We don't have the Ohio State blue blood. We don't have the resources Ohio State has. So it's kind of a pipe dream to ever think that we'd get a player like that unless things drastically change. So you can see the entities here with Golden Blue Enterprises, Country Roads Trust, the MAC, all those things. And it can be very confusing to a fan who to donate to. It sounds like Country Roads Trust is kind of going by the wayside and everything's going in-house with Golden Blue Enterprises. Coos Corner actually did a great video the other day highlighting how you can help as a West Virginia fan. So, if you can help and you have the extra money, by all means, please help out. We definitely need it as a program, but it is a little confusing if you don't know what to do. So definitely check out Coos's video. It's really good on that aspect. All right, let's talk about the stress factor though. And that's kind of like the whole point of this video. It just seems like it's a very stressful time to be following your team anymore. Sports are supposed to be an escape. Sports are supposed to be a way to get away from your 9 to 5 and the stresses that you might have, whether it's health stress, anxiety, stress about your job, stress about your family life, whatever it may be. Sports, you're supposed to turn on the channel and for that 3 or 4 hours be an escape. With college athletics right now, it just seems like it's another stress that we have to deal with. It feels like, oh, your team stinks. Oh, by the way, you're poor and you need to donate more money. So it's almost like we get this sense of responsibility for our team, which is just weird because if you look at the NFL model or college, or sorry, not college, MLB, NHL, all the pro leagues, I'm not exactly worried about my team's financial status, right? I'm a Giants fan. I'm more concerned with the results on the field and why we've been lousy for the last 10 years, but I'm not worried about what deals we're getting and naming rights. It's just almost becoming like exhausting following this because again, sports are supposed to be entertaining. And right now, as a fan, when you're worried about money of your university, it's just not entertaining. And again, fans have real life money stress already, right? Especially in this economy, especially when we talk about a blue collar fan base like West Virginia, coal miners, teachers, police officers. Those aren't exactly the most lavish careers. People don't make a ton of money. So people have student loans, people have grocery bills, mortgage payments, car payments, all those things, daycare bills. And then to say, hey, not only should you be stressed about that, but maybe you should also be stressed about the current state of your favorite team. It just is kind of off-putting. And I feel like as a West Virginia fan, I'm constantly stressed about the university making money and the athletic department making money, which is not really what the fan experience is supposed to be like. So I definitely think it's something that exists. And I think fans feel that. And if you do feel that, let me know in the comments. And then the other problem is right now is just the fading fan interest among West Virginia fans. My phone blows up from my friends who know I'm a diehard. Obviously, they see I have a channel now and they know that I'm locked in. And they're just like, why do we care anymore? And they're almost like starting to like give up hope. We've had four losing seasons in the last 5 years. If we lose one more game this year, and obviously that's going to be a really challenging thing to sweep the rest of the games, you're probably going to get a loss. So you're looking at 4 out of the last 5 seasons losing records. We have not been to a conference title game since joining the Big 12. So we used to win the Big East all the time and compete for BCS games. And since joining the new conference, we have not done that. We haven't been ranked since 2018. And it just feels like West Virginia is slipping further behind. This year was supposed to be a step in the right direction. Even if we would have finished like 6-6, it was a sign that Rich Rodriguez is going to turn this around, and maybe it was a Neil Brown problem. Now, by no means am I giving up on Rich Rodriguez after year one. I think he needs a little bit more time. But when you look at the fan base, some fans have just are losing hope because we have not competed in the NIL market. We have not competed since the transfer portal has been in place. Like post COVID, we have really struggled. Now, is that an issue with Neil Brown and dating back to his tenure because Dana did okay? Or is it more of an institutional problem? And we're probably going to find out in the next 2 to 3 years if it was a Neil Brown issue, if it's a coaching issue, or if it's a mix of that. Hopefully, Rich Rodriguez can turn this thing around. I know there's a lot of talks of having more money to spend this year, but I know that right now among the football program, some of the casual fans are starting to tune out. And honestly, you can I'm seeing that with even this channel, right? The first few months that I did this in June, July, uh, August, September, the numbers were really good. Subscribers were coming in like crazy because the hype was there for football season. Then if you look at my October numbers, it's no coincidence that the views are down, the subscribers are way down, and I truly believe it's not because I'm doing anything different. It's the same process I've been having. It's because we've lost, 5 games in a row, and we've gotten blown out in the majority of them. And I think fans are starting to tune out a little bit. I think that, and I hear that from my friends, and I hear that from fans in my comments and on Twitter. You can see it that fans are just losing interest if this trend continues. So next year is going to be massively important that we get this thing back in the right direction. Year two, if we struggle with Rich Rodriguez, then you're really going to lose fan interest. And the other thing to keep in mind is this year we had a crazy amount of season ticket sales. We did a great job with that, over 30,000. What is that going to look like next year? You don't have a rivalry game on the home slate next year. You don't play Pitt at home. That 9-13 game was a huge reason for fans to sign up for season tickets, right? And Now, and you also had the Rich Rod hype. Well, now year two, the Rich Rod hype, if we have only 2 or 3 wins to show this year, is that hype going to be there next year? It may if you do things with the transfer portal. And I think people always drink the Kool-Aid going into the season, but I don't think it's going to have the same hype that it had this year. So what is season ticket sales going to look like next year? These are all pressing concerns that work against West Virginia and create a stressful environment if you care about the team. All right, the next thing is it's a bad business model. Let's face it. How do you build loyalty when everyone can leave mid-season? We've already seen it this year with Oren Singleton, right? And Golden Nelson, and we've seen it with Charles Woods in the past, or we see it across the country where guys are self-redshirting. So you are going to tell me I'm going to invest money and say, okay, we're going to get these great players, but then middle of the season, they can just bounce. How much of that money is guaranteed? How much of my portion went to that player? It's a really hard business model when you don't see your return on your investment, especially when the team is losing. Like I said, I'm not telling you not to invest. I want everybody watching this to invest in those collectives for West Virginia. It's essential, but we can't lie to ourselves that it's a bad business model. In the NFL, you can see the contracts. You know they get where the guaranteed money's going, and the team's footing that bill, not necessarily the fans. And yes, there's rev share, but now there's also NIL, and we're behind in NIL. It sounds like so. It is part of our problem. We do need a grassroots effort, but when there's no transparency, it's hard to get behind that as a fan that has other financial responsibilities like a family. And then again, the transfer portal chaos and constant rebuild is really off putting to a lot of the old school fans. If you look at the demographic of our fan base, we have a lot of older fans and they don't love the transfer portal, and I can't blame them. How many times over the last few years have we seen our best players transfer to other schools? Hakeem Ezador, anytime I watch Miami, Hakeem Ezador is making plays for Miami. Tyke Smith's a guy that's in the NFL. Caden Prather was a great receiver for West Virginia that left right before his prime. Winston Wright is a guy that had the speed, had the explosiveness, looked like the next like Mario Alford. He's gone before he can do things. Daryl Porter, the list goes on, and there's this anxiety that leads up to the end of the season that we're all feeling. I feel anxious about what's going to happen in 3 or 4 weeks. As soon as our last game is over, we're going to be watching guys' Twitter and Instagrams, and we're going to be constantly refreshing those things to see if they enter the portal. And in my opinion, that's not healthy. It's hard to build trust with the players when you know they can leave. And it's kind of like a little bit of a slap in the face sometimes if you're donating your hard-earned money to pay these guys, and then a year later they're just going to bounce for a bigger check. So that is a bad business model, and fans don't like that. And we know it's essential. We know that what we have to do, but it's also like, man, like it just stinks when there's no contract in place, when it's constant free agency. It's just a bad business model. And again, there's no connection or tradition to the schools. Unfortunately, college football and college basketball now is very much transactional. It is how much are they paying me for this year, and then I'm going to reevaluate at the end of the season. Yes, we want our players to love our schools, to bleed gold and blue, and there'll be some that do, but there are also a lot that this is a business decision, and they're going to use the 4 years of eligibility that they have to make the most money that they can. So when that happens, unfortunately, you don't get the pride of having the same players in your program. I'm doing a Houston preview right now. All of their impact players are transfers from Rice, UAB, Oklahoma. Not too many guys that I've seen as impact players are Houston guys that have been there for 4 years. Look at our roster now and look at what's going to happen to the roster next year. There's going to be an influx of players that are going to be from different schools that are going to be almost like rental players, that they're going to be here for one semester and they're going to be gone. And that's the environment that's been created. And it stinks, but you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you don't give, we're never going to be successful, and the economy in West Virginia is going to get hurt, and we're going to see a brand that we love and cherish so much go by the wayside. But at the same time, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth with the current state of athletics. And again, like I said, college sports, and you don't have to worry about this stuff with pro sports. I mean, I'm a Giants fan. It was tough to see Saquon Barkley go to the Eagles, but at the end of the day, it's a business. His contract ran up. We knew it was a possibility it happened, and it is what it is. There's contracts. You can at least, it's a pro model, right? At least you know when you sign a guy, okay, you have him for 3 years unless he opts out of his contract, holds out. There's always trades, but for the most part, you know what you're getting with that stuff. In college, it's the wild, wild west. There's no regulations. So in that case, it's a bad business model. And that's why it might be off-putting and it's stressful for people to give their hard-earned money to players that are going to stick around for 6 months. All right. What else? And then the other problem right now with West Virginia is the fans are so split on Rich Rod. It's almost come like political. And I hate politics. I will not talk about it, especially as a teacher. But it almost seems like if you look at the comments, half the fan base is like, give Rich Rod more time. He's going to turn this around. And half of the fan base on the other side's like, Rich Rod was a terrible hire. He's a traitor. We should have never hired him in the first place. It was a nostalgic hire. And you're constantly feeling that. So you have a fan base that, a decent amount will never donate because they're not happy with the coach. And let's face it, you're never going to make an entire fan base happy. But with the current state of this happening, it's just tough. Rich Rod really had to win the fan base over this year. And we did a little bit with the Pitt game. But let's face it, man, that Pitt game feels like it was 5 years ago at this point. We're going in different directions right now. So the way it's currently going, hopefully the last 4 games they can build momentum and show fans that we're going to turn this thing around. Because if not, it could be a long off season, especially between the fan bases, the two sides butting heads, and it just doesn't help anyone if we're against each other about a coach. So we need to back him however you feel about him. And let's be positive though, man. We do have the right guy in place for now, right? It's Ren Baker, and he's doing everything he can to make sure that West Virginia is relevant and have a seat at the table, because our biggest fear as West Virginia is that we become irrelevant, and when we do a realignment shift, we're going to be left out in the cold, and that would just be devastating to the university and the state. So he's done things like the official mulch supplier. He's renaming the Hope Coliseum. He's trying to get more luxury seating at the football field and things like that. So this guy has a plan. And one thing that we can sleep at night good for is that this guy has a plan for West Virginia, and he's doing everything he can to make sure that West Virginia is relevant. Now, the teams have to back him, though. We need to start winning. Ren Baker can be the best businessman in the world, but unless you start winning on the court, on the football field, it's not going to matter. We need to win so that people will be more willing to put out their checkbooks and make the checks that are necessary for us to compete. So at least we have him. All right, final thoughts on this one. So again, I'm kind of weighing two things. I think it's absolutely necessary that we as a fan base find a way to fund the program, but at the same time, we also have to recognize that is extremely stressful for our fan base and something that's difficult to do. WVU has struggled to compete since the NIL era. If you look at all the data since 2020, we have not been a very competitive football team, and I don't think that's a coincidence. 2026, next season, is going to be a massive season for football, for fan and donor support. We cannot have another season where we look as poor as we do. Otherwise, it's going to get super uncomfortable. We need to see progress next year, even if it's getting back to a bowl game. We have to make strides and get this thing back on the right track, and I think they will. WVU fans fear being left out in a power conference. I think that's something that's all on our mind, and it's our biggest fear and biggest worry. WVU sports has become financially stressful, and I if you feel different, let me know. But I feel like I definitely feel the stress of the football team, and it's something that I always worry about, how we're going to fund our programs, and that's not what the sports experience should be. And then lastly, on the positive note, Ren Baker is a great athletic director. It has the fan support. The teams just have to win. If they win, we'll be okay. That's all I got for this episode. Again, I wanted to put my 2 cents out there. This has been in the news a lot, especially since McAfee's comments on game day. I really, really appreciate you guys. Again, please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so. Tell a friend. We're trying to grow this thing. We really appreciate you. Have a great rest of your night. Let's go Mountaineers.